What's up, bipeds? So today we're talking about biceps, more specifically biceps measurements, and we're going to talk about forearm measurements as well. So I got a question the other day on Quora, and it was something like, I'm 16, I've never lifted weights, and I have 43 centimeter, 17-inch arms. Is this good? And thus, I feel the need to make a video about arm size. So we're going to go on a journey in this video. We're going to go from average arm size up to above average, up to what is elite for a natural, cross into the realms of less than natural, and take a look at the actual measurements of some of the top unnatural bodybuilders in the world. Plus, I'm going to give you 4 different exercises to help build up the biceps and triceps, and give you some tips for getting some bigger arms. So the average arm size for a male is going to be low to mid 13 inches. This whole video is going to be talking in inches just because that is what is typically used for arm measurements. Anything I say, you can just multiply it by 2.54 to get centimeters. Also, it's mostly going to be applying to guys. Female bodybuilding is something that I won't really be covering a lot. So how to convert to a female measurement, I would say take off a couple of inches and see where you are. So when you go from 13 to 14 inches, you are now officially above average. And when you get to 15 inches, in 1932, there was a mythic organization known as the 15-inch Arm Club. So 15 inches, naturally, it's not bad. It's not horrible. You know, it's not incredible by any means, but it's well above average. And if you have a 15-inch arm, especially if it's somewhat lean, it will definitely stand out at least a little bit. When you go from 15 to 16, 16 is actually very impressive for a natural. Okay, so anyone who thinks that a 16-inch arm is small is well, they've been watching Instagram too much, which is going to be mostly the unnatural side of things, and this can make a huge difference in your expectations. So anyone who thinks that a 16-inch arm is small, you know, they have some really weird and unrealistic expectations. My arms, I measured them just today, and this one is 17 inches. I finally broke 17 inches, which is something that I've been working towards for a very, very long time. Unfortunately, I do not have 17-inch arms, because this arm, it's actually, I haven't torn a bicep or anything, but I've been dealing with some injury issues there. And that is only a little bit above 16 inches. So I have a 17-inch arm, and this arm is, you can even probably see it's kind of lagging just because I've been dealing with some tendon issues there. So, you know, everyone has a little bit of imbalances. Sometimes they are fairly significant. By the way, you can actually get a prediction on your maximum muscular potential for your arms, for your quads, for your calves, for a bunch of different areas at the website weightrainer.net. I'll link it in the description. It's a good resource. And if you plug in your wrist size and your height, for me, I get a 17.3-inch natural potential at 8 to 10% body fat. So this one is 17 inches, and I'm maybe 17 or 18% body fat. So, you know, at a higher body fat percentage, your arm naturally does get a little bit bigger just because you have fat, you have water, you have bloat in the muscle, etc. And so I'm actually fairly close. I'm 0.3 inches away, but if I dieted down, I might lose half an inch or so. So when people ask me if I even lift, or if they're like, oh, you don't look very impressive, it shows me that they have just a really messed up idea of what is actually possible naturally. A 17-inch arm naturally is pretty damn rare. And I don't mean naturally like, oh yeah, I cycle off before the competition, or yeah, I stopped using years ago. I abused steroids for years, but now I'm natural. No, I mean like lifetime natural, as in I've never used anything ever. No SARMs, no steroids, no testosterone, nothing. I don't even take creatine. Basically, whey protein or casein protein is about all I take. So that is actually natural. Now fast forward from 1932, where 15 inches got you into a mythical organization, a special club, and it looks like roughly 17 to 18 inches was the sort of gold standard. Steve Reeves, 18 to 18 and a half inches. John Grimmick, also 18 inches. Reg Park, 18 and a quarter inch. And you can see a pretty clear trend. George Eferman, only 16.7 inches. And so, a lot of these guys are floating somewhere between 17 and 18 inches, with a few genetic freaks, going a little bit above 18 inches. But you still don't see anyone with like a 19 or 20 inch arms. 19 and a half is the biggest arm out there. Then anabolic steroids became a lot more prevalent into the 1960s and 1970s, and arm measurements understandably got significantly bigger. Bill Pearl, 1960, had 18 and 5/8 of an inch. Arnold himself had 19 and 3/4. He claimed 22 to 23, but
don't freak out when you see these biceps, okay? I know it's the best you ever seen, but
the pump is coming day and night. The pump is coming day and night. The pump is coming day and night.
When it comes to arm measurements, never trust people's words, okay? There's a reason Arnold became an actor and a politician, okay? So he was measured pumped at 19 and 3/4. Sergio Olivia, 20 and 1/4, I think. And those are very, very large, massive arm measurements. And anyone who claims to be able to get to 20 inches naturally, I'm extremely skeptical. Like, extremely skeptical. If someone claims to have a 20-inch arm naturally, here's what's probably happening. It could be mismeasurements. If you measure straight across, that is a real measurement. If you measure like from the side to one side, you can get obviously a much bigger reading because it's not, it's just being dishonest. Plus, measuring yourself can sometimes be difficult. And so, sometimes these people believe they have a 20-inch arm when they just, maybe they have a 17.5-inch arm and they just didn't know how to actually measure the actual arm. It could also be fat. If someone is 25 or 30% body fat, yeah, you're going to add a couple inches just because there's more mass there. It's just not really muscle. If someone, there's grandmothers who, have never lifted a weight in their life and they have 25-inch arms, okay, just because they're 400 or 500 pounds and the measurement is huge, but there's not really, lean body mass there. It's just blubber, essentially. In the modern era, it could also be steroids. Maybe they're a fake natural. It's just so goddamn common nowadays. So if someone is claiming to have 20-inch arms, maybe they do, but maybe they're not natural. It could also be synthol. This is becoming fairly common. Not even like the synthol freaks who are clearly something is just wrong with them mentally, but people who just like touch up the bicep or touch up the tricep. Like they just, squirt a little bit in there and get an extra inch or two. And so if a bicep looks watery and someone's in stage condition, probably synthol or site oil enhancement or whatever. Finally, they could be a freak. Now, I find this to be pretty unlikely, but I guess with a bigger gene pool, with a more competitive sport, with more people taking part, I guess it's possible that someone just has like the perfect goddamn attachments and maybe just super high testosterone, and the perfect storm comes and then they have like a 19, possibly even 20-inch arm. I guess it's possible. I don't make the accusation, but if someone claims to have a 20-inch arm, it's probably one of these things, and it's probably not a real, natural, muscular 20-inch arm. Moving on from the Arnold era, the golden era, Lee Haney had 20 to 21-inch arms. So, this is an 8-time Mr. Olympia who had 20 to 21-inch arms, and people are claiming to be able to do this naturally. Okay. Dorian Yates, 21 inches. Ronnie Coleman, 22, although I did see a report of 24 inches. I'm going to say it's probably on the low side to 22 inches. Jay Cutler, 21 to 22 inches. Phil Heath, 22.5 to 23. Lee Priest, his arms are they look absolutely phenomenal. Only 22 inches, only 22 inches. So it's not just about the size. Sometimes, it can look better even though it's not as big on the tape measure. As for bigger than that, Dave Crossland claims to have 25-inch arms. And honestly, I would prefer to have arms that look like mine rather than this. There's no real shape to them. I mean, they're impressive in terms of the measurement, but in terms of the flow, in terms of, like the gap and the peak and everything, and it just, the overall physique, I would rather have my body over that. So it's not just about the arm measurement. Mansfred Horbel, I'm probably butchering his name, has 25 and 3/4 to 26 inches. I stumbled across an answer on the website Quora while I was doing my search, but written by some gentleman named Jeffrey Verity Schofield, who talked about this. And Horbel had a 628-pound bench press and an 860-pound deadlift. So he obviously was very, very strong, not just a synthol freak, and therefore I can have respect for that arm measurement. Beyond that, you have some guys doing some really weird stuff with site oil enhancement. Could be synthol, could be something else. They inject painkillers and olive oil and all kinds of weird shit into their arms. Honestly, I find this to be absolutely gross. Like, steroids is one thing, okay, fine. Like, at least it's not natural, but at least it's like actual muscle tissue and not just like weird debris that you find on the street that you're injecting into your arms and weird stuff like that. But the Guinness Book of World Records record is 31 goddamn inches. So honestly, no one wants to have arms like that except for this guy, but that's the actual world record. So to sum things up before I go on to the exercises, I would say 13 is average for upper arm, 14 is a little above average, 15 is pretty good, 16 is very good, 17 is excellent, good job buddy, 18 is world-class, absolutely phenomenal, and then 19 is like super freak of all freaks for a, lean, natural bodybuilder. And then as for forearms, my forearms are 13.5 inches. The formula that I mentioned before predicts 13.9 inches, so I'm just 0.4 inches away. And then Reg Park and Steve Reeves both had 14.25 inches, so I'm 3/4 of an inch behind those fellas. So not too bad. Again, so when I get this hate on the internet, like, oh, do you even lift? I'm like, seriously? Really? My shirt broke. Exercise 1, you're going to want to do a shirt curl. So take the broken remnants of your shitty shirt and curl! I command you to curl. So we're going to start with triceps just because that is roughly 2/3 of the upper arm. Roughly 66%. Hashtag quick math. And we're going to start with a skull crusher. Now, these are not for everyone. They tend to bother the elbows for some people. But they are an excellent way to stress the long head, really the entire tricep, actually. And I tend to do them in a more pullover type of fashion. So I'm using a little bit of lat involvement, but the focus is still on the triceps. You can also use dumbbells on these. You can also play around with your elbow position and see, which is going to be the most comfortable for you. There's no one right way to do skull crushers. I've seen natural hypertrophy. He does them when he's in a super extended position and the range of motion at the elbow is a little bit shorter, but he's getting a constant tension on that long head, and it's just a different variation of the same movement. So there's nothing wrong with playing around with your torso position, with your shoulder position, your elbows, and how exactly you're doing the movement. Number 2 is going to be a standard easy bar curl. Easy bar curl because it's usually easier on the elbows for most people. The limiting factor for arm growth for most people is going to be elbow and maybe wrist health. So long term, do what feels comfortable. So either it's skull crushers or curls or whatever. If something causes you pain, throw it away. Okay, don't even listen to what I say. You can buy my book. There's tons of different curls. You can peruse my channel. There's lots of different videos. But, if something just doesn't agree with your elbows, it's best just not to do it. That being said, this is a great exercise. You can go a little bit narrow or a little bit wider. And I tend to train this very close to failure. And my preferred rep range is anywhere from 8 to 12, although sometimes I go a little bit heavier and sometimes I go a little bit lighter. I typically recommend full range of motion. It shouldn't be too hard to actually complete full range of motion and be able to feel the muscle during the entire range of motion. I guess if you have a really bad coach, that might be tough. But if you can use your brain and you can actually think about it and you can actually do full range of motion, you will definitely benefit from that. Number 3 is going to be the overhead cable extension. You can also use a band for these. These are absolutely excellent. You can get a full stretch of the long head, which is a huge part of the triceps, which is a huge part of the upper arm. And so I would say you're not going to be able to get full triceps development without some kind of overhead movement. It's really going to be essential. For these, I typically go anywhere from 8 to 12 again, although sometimes 10 to 15, sometimes 15 to 20. I typically don't go below around 8 reps. And I typically also control it. You can probably see me in the video really controlling the eccentric and getting a stretch each rep. If you do partial reps, you can move way more weight, but it might not actually give you very much benefit. Also, again, listen to your body. If these piss your elbows off, there's no harm in dumping them. You can switch to dumbbells, get a little bit more freedom of movement in the shoulder, or you can just switch to something just like a closed grip bench press, a push down. Those are both going to be excellent as well. Again, long-term health and longevity is going to be the name of the game. Finally, we have the incline dumbbell curl. Now, these are one of my favorite. I actually haven't done these in a very long time. I added them in recently, and you get an incredible stretch at the bottom, pretty good contraction at the top, plus you can overload pretty extensively, and these are awesome. You can go to failure and then do little partials in the bottom position just to burn out the triceps, or the biceps rather. Those are awesome, absolutely amazing. Typically, in terms of rep range, I'm going to be 8 to 12, again, somewhere in that range. So I typically like arms in that 8 to 12 rep range, where using full range of motion, you can still overload, but you're not overloading the elbows as much as the actual muscle. I know some people advocate training their arms in the 4 to 6 rep range. I think that's okay on something like a closed grip bench press, or a neutral grip pull-up, but when it comes to direct isolation work, I would say a slightly higher rep range is going to be better for most people. I wouldn't say you should go with the partials and 20 to 30 rep kind of thing, but try it out, see if it works for you. But have 8 to 12 and a more moderate rep range be a good starting point. Mountain. Not everyone is going to get that reference, and you're not going to be able to Google it either. So make sure to like, subscribe, turn on notifications, tell your family you love them. Have a good 2021, and I will see you in the next video. Peace!